A 65-year-old retired mechanic stood on his lot, looking at a quote for a basic wood cabin. The total sat at a staggering $250,000. He refused to let go of his off-grid dream, so he spent under $8,500 on a heavy-duty trailer and curved sheets of corrugated steel. In a few weekends, he bolted together a Quonset hut directly onto the axles. He built a secure home without a single bank loan or mortgage. It was a masterpiece of blue-collar ingenuity. Then, county zoning authorities showed up to his dirt driveway. They looked at a man who housed himself for pennies and immediately started drafting paperwork to tow the structure away. But the loophole he used to fight back is completely changing the market. To understand how local governments became hostile to a man solving his own problem, you need to see the crisis unfolding everywhere. According to federal housing records from early 2026, the cost of building a basic, single-family cabin in rural America has exploded by over 40% in just 5 years. The old American dream of buying a quiet plot of land and putting up a modest wood frame is completely dead for the working class. Today, the average cost to construct a traditional 1,000-square-foot cabin sits at roughly $250,000 to $300,000. And that is before you even factor in the price of the dirt it sits on. For millions of men nearing retirement age with limited savings or fixed pensions, those numbers are brick wall. These are men who worked on their feet for 40 years. Men who simply want to retreat to the woods and live in peace. You probably drive past someone in this exact situation more often than you realize. An uncle, a father, a neighbor who watched his savings lose value while the cost of 2x4s doubled. But here is what most people miss. Even if they somehow secured the $250,000, they would immediately hit the next wall. Local zoning boards and planning commissions. Real estate historians note that in many rural counties, getting the necessary permits for a permanent residential structure now takes anywhere from 12 to 18 months. That is a year and a half of waiting for a committee to stamp a piece of paper, paying holding costs on empty land the entire time. The government is well aware of this crisis. In 2025, federal agencies poured nearly $1.5 billion into rural affordable housing initiatives designed to spur development in overlooked zip codes. But the money disappeared into a maze of contractor subsidies, environmental impact studies, and administrative overhead. According to real estate trackers, the actual number of affordable rural units built under those programs fell wildly short demand. The government took hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars and barely made a dent for the average guy wanting a simple roof in the trees. Billion-dollar programs with decade-long timelines simply do not work for a 65-year-old man who needs a place to live next month, not next year. Right now, he cannot afford a 30-year mortgage. He cannot wait 18 months for a zoning board to approve his blueprint. So, people are taking matters into their own hands. Instead of begging for permission from slow-moving bureaucracies, they're looking for legal loopholes that completely bypass the system. And the loophole they found is brilliant. They are turning away from traditional wood and picking up heavy steel instead. If you have never seen a Quonset hut up close, it is a brilliantly simple piece of engineering developed by the military for rapid deployment. It is essentially a half-cylinder of corrugated steel. There are no internal support beams, no complex load-bearing walls, just thick, arched steel bolted directly to a foundation. But ordinary Americans are putting a radical spin on that foundation. Instead of pouring concrete and triggering a mountain of permanent zoning requirements, they are bolting these 8 by 20-foot steel arches directly to the decks of heavy-duty flatbed trailers. Property assessors point out that this single adjustment changes everything, not in a small way, in a massive, legally binding way. The moment that steel arch touches a trailer deck with axles and wheels, it legally ceases to be a permanent building. In the eyes of the law, it instantly becomes a recreational vehicle, a mobile trailer, or a temporary shelter. That means no multi-year wait for a zoning board to approve your foundation depth, no requirement to hire a licensed general contractor to sign off on your framing plan, no bank demanding a 30-year mortgage and extensive credit checks before they agree to fund a traditional build. You just need a few basic tools, a wrench, some ratchets, a ladder, and maybe a neighbor to help you hold the heavy corrugated panels in place. while you bolt them together. While a traditional cabin build can easily stretch over 2 grueling years of delays and contractor disputes, a mobile steel Quonset can go up over a single long weekend. It is the ultimate life hack for anyone tired of being priced out of their own country. Records show a heavy-duty trailer base costs around $4,000. The steel arches cost another $4,000. Add some rigid foam board for insulation and a vapor barrier to handle condensation, and you have an indestructible shell for well under $10,000. A shell that cannot rot, cannot burn down in a forest fire, and will not collapse under heavy snowpack. And if the local authorities decide they do not like the look of it, you do not have to fight a losing legal battle in court. You just hook it up to a truck and pull it somewhere else. This is not a theory. Let me tell you about a man who actually did it, and exactly what happened when the city tried to stop him. Robert Vance was a 65-year-old retired diesel mechanic living in rural Oregon. He had spent 4 decades fixing heavy machinery, building a modest life, and rely on a fixed pension for his retirement. But in 2025, his landlord raised his rent by $400 a month. His pension did not go up by $400 a month. He later told a local reporter, "I looked at the math and realized I was mathematically guaranteed to end up on the street in less than 3 years. I was out of time." He needed a roof, and he needed it immediately. So Robert took his remaining savings and drove to a commercial trailer dealership. He spent exactly $4,200 on a heavy-duty 24-foot flatbed trailer. Next, he drove to an industrial mill supplier and bought a stack of corrugated steel arches for $4,500. He parked the flatbed on a patch of dirt he had managed to buy years earlier, and he went to work. He called over 2 of his former neighbors to help with the heavy lifting. For 3 days, the only sounds on that dirt lot were the ringing of steel panels and the clicking of heavy socket wrenches. They lifted the curved metal sheets one by one, bolting them together and securing the base directly to the thick steel frame of the trailer. It was grueling, physical, blue-collar labor. But by Sunday evening, the shell of a home was standing. Robert spent the next few weeks refining the interior to make it habitable. He installed rigid foam board insulation and a vapor barrier to fight the freezing Oregon winters. He added a small camping toilet, a wood-burning stove, and a few used solar panels strapped to the roof for basic electricity. When he tallied his receipts from the local hardware store, the total cost of the entire build settled right around $11,800 for a man who had been staring down a $250,000 housing market. It was a profound victory. He had built a completely weatherproof, debt-free home with his own 2 hands, a space that belonged entirely to him, a front door he could finally lock at night without worrying about the rent. But the local county zoning board did not see a miracle of human ingenuity. Instead, less than 3 weeks after Robert finished his build, a white county vehicle slowly pulled up his dirt driveway, and the piece of paper they handed him would spark a standoff that no one saw coming. The county zoning board did not celebrate Robert Vance's resourcefulness. 2 days after he finished the build, a white code enforcement truck slowly pulled up his dirt driveway. The inspector did not ask how Robert managed to build a fully insulated solar power home for under $12,000. He did not care that a retired diesel mechanic had miraculously solved his own impending homelessness. Without asking the state for a single dime, he simply walked up to the curved steel wall, pulled out a roll of tape, and attached a bright yellow notice of violation right next to the front door. The official citation claimed the mobile Quonset hut violated a 1974 local ordinance restricting unpermitted permanent residential accessory structures. The penalty was severe, a $500 daily fine, $500 a day, until the home was completely dismantled, removed from the trailer bed, and hauled off the property. Keep in mind, this was the exact same county that had just declared a public housing state of emergency, a county where local shelters were overflowing, where more than 2,000 families were sitting on a 5-year wait list for subsidized apartments. And their immediate response to an old man spending his own hard-earned money to keep himself off the street threatened him with financial ruin. Building codes written 5 decades ago never imagined a world where a basic wood cabin would cost $250,000. They were originally designed to ensure structural safety, not to criminalize survival. But the bureaucracy does not adapt. They did not see a man surviving. They only saw a piece of corrugated steel that lacked a $3,000 county permitting stamp. Robert refused to tear it down. He pointed to the heavy-duty axles resting underneath the steel frame. He argued that legally, the home was a registered vehicle, not a permanent building. When the standoff made the local newspaper, the public outrage was immediate. Neighbors who had never even met Robert began flooding the zoning office with angry phone calls. They demanded the county back off and let the man live in peace. Why penalize the exact solution that working people desperately need? The legal battle dragged on, proving that beating the system as an individual is dangerously difficult. But while Robert fought to keep his home in Oregon, a completely different approach to the same loophole was taking shape on a much larger scale. While Robert Vance was fighting to keep his single home in Oregon, a completely different approach to the exact same loophole was taking shape about 1,800 miles away in a rural pocket, Missouri. In early 2026, a group of retired military veterans realized that their own community was being priced out traditional housing market. City planning records show that in their specific county, the average price of a modest permanent home had surged past $300,000. They were watching older men on fixed income cycle in and out of temporary shelters, unable to afford the exploding cost of local rent. They did not wait for a federal committee to draft a rescue plan. Instead, they pooled their resources and bought a vacant 20-acre lot just outside the city limits. Their plan was straightforward. They took the mobile Quonset hut concept and scaled it up into a completely off-grid fleet. As the founders later told reporters, by ordering heavy-duty flatbed trailers and corrugated steel arches in commercial bulk, they drove the price of materials down significantly. The cost to construct each weatherproof shell dropped to just $7,500. They adapted the original design for complete independence. Volunteers spent weeks bolting rainwater catchment tanks to the rear of the trailers and wiring off-grid solar arrays directly into the curved steel roofs. They added wood-burning stoves and thick, rigid foam insulation to prepare for the bitter Midwestern winters. But the true brilliance of their operation was how they handled the local zoning laws. If they had applied to build a permanent subdivision of 20 homes, the county would have tied them up in environmental impact studies and foundation permitting for at least 3 years. So they did not build a subdivision. Legally, they filed the paperwork to operate a private, extended stay RV campground. Because every single Quonset hut sat on a wheeled axle with a registered license plate, the county had to classify the entire community as a parking lot for recreational vehicles. The local building codes written decades ago explicitly allowed for RV parks. The bureaucracy had no mechanism to stop them. By the spring of 2026, 15 of these steel arches were parked side by side on Missouri dirt, gleaming in the sun. It was a community built by veterans, for veterans, completely bypassing the massive financial barriers of the modern housing market. And for the men who actually moved into these steel shelters, the impact went far beyond just beating a local zoning ordinance. One of the men who pulled his truck into that Missouri campground was a 70-year-old veteran named Arthur. For 4 grueling years, Arthur had been sleeping in the back of a rusting 2002 cargo van. He had survived the freezing Midwestern winters by wrapping himself in military surplus sleeping bags. He woke up every 2 hours to turn on the engine just to keep his hands from going numb. The psychological toll of that daily instability was suffocating. Every single night brought the constant fear of a flashlight beam cutting through the window and a police officer telling him he had to move along. He had options for traditional city shelters, but he flatly refused them because of one strict, non-negotiable rule. None of the subsidized apartments or emergency dorms in his county would allow him to bring his 10-year-old mixed-breed dog, Buster. Arthur repeatedly chose the freezing metal floor of a cargo van over abandoning the only companion he had left in the world. Then he found the veteran-run Quonset community. Because the steel arches were legally classified as RVs on a privately owned campground, the organizers were entirely free to set their own rules. They implemented a pet-friendly policy on day one. Today, Arthur lives in a 160-square-foot steel arch that he rents for just $200 a month. If you step inside, the physical reality of his new space is striking. He has a heavy bed bolted securely to to the thick trailer deck. He has a small wood-burning stove crackling in the corner, radiating heat into the rigid foam insulation. When the heavy spring storms roll in, the steel ceiling stays completely dry. A quiet room means he can actually sleep through the night without keeping one ear open for the sound of approaching tires. A stable address means his veteran benefits finally arrive in a physical mailbox instead of bouncing between temporary P.O. boxes. Most importantly, it gave him back a basic human right. He later told a reporter, "For 4 years, I felt like a ghost haunting my own city. Now I put my key in the door, hear that lock click, and I know absolutely nobody can tell me to leave." A heavy-duty deadbolt and a piece of corrugated steel gave a 70-year-old man his dignity back. It cost a group of volunteers just $7,500 to make that happen. Now, compare that hyper-efficient, ground-level success to what happens when the government tries to solve the exact same problem. Compare Arthur's $7,500 steel arch to what happened in California with a program called Project Home Key. In an attempt to permanently house vulnerable adults, the state allocated a staggering $800 million to convert old motels and build new affordable units. The public was told this massive injection of taxpayer money would rapidly clear the streets. But according to the state's own financial audits released in 2024, the actual cost to develop a single one-bedroom unit under that program spiraled completely out of control. When you factor in land acquisition, environmental reviews, mandatory contractor wages, and endless administrative fees, the average cost per door hit $450,000. $450,000 to house one single person. And that is just the cost to build a unit, not to maintain it or staff the building. Furthermore, records show that roughly 30% of the individuals placed into these $500,000 units ended up back in crisis or back on the streets within 2 years. That contrast tells you everything you need to know about how broken the current system really is. On one side, you have a government bureaucracy spending nearly $500,000 for a single apartment that takes 4 years to permit and build. On the other side, you have a group of retired veterans in Missouri spending $7,500 on corrugated steel and a heavy-duty axle, building a completely weatherproof home in a single weekend. A $450,000 bureaucratic failure versus a $7,500 volunteer success. The government approach relies on endless committee meetings, zoning appeals, and 30-year banking structures. The grassroots approach relies on a socket wrench, a flatbed trailer, and a Saturday afternoon with your neighbors. The Quonset on wheels is not just a clever life hack for living off the grid. It is a direct, physical indictment of a housing market that has completely lost its mind. It proves that smaller really is faster. And for millions of men nearing retirement with empty bank accounts, faster is exactly what they need to survive. They cannot wait for the state to fix a billion-dollar mistake. They are realizing that if they want a dry roof over their heads, they are going to have to bolt it together themselves. But how they are actually doing it changes the entire narrative. So, how are Americans surviving a housing crisis that has completely priced them out of their own country? They are not waiting for a 10-year government plan to reach year 3. They are not sitting on a 5-year wait list for a subsidized apartment that might never be built. They are taking their hardware store receipts, buying heavy-duty axles, and bolting corrugated steel arches together with their own hands. They are just building it themselves. They are looking at a system that completely abandoned them, and they are choosing to survive it anyway. Think about Robert Vance, the retired diesel mechanic in Oregon, who spent his last $11,800 to keep himself off the street. The county tried to fine him. They tried to force his hard work into a local landfill because he lacked a $3,000 permitting stamp. But because he built his house on wheels, he simply hitched his trailer to a borrow truck and pulled it across the county line, straight to a piece of unrestricted dirt. Tomorrow morning, that 65-year-old man is going to wake up in a completely warm, dry room. He is going to walk over to a small steel counter, boil water on his small wood stove, and make a cup of coffee inside a home that nobody can legally take away from him. And maybe that has always been the answer. Not billion-dollar budgets, not massive federal committees, or endless administrative reviews. Just ordinary people finding a legal loophole, picking up a socket wrench, and building a quiet space of themselves. Neighbors building for neighbors, one bolted steel arch at a time. Now, if you care about this issue and want to know how to actually navigate these exact zoning loopholes for yourself, I put together a free guide called the Quonset Blueprint. It covers the exact flatbed trailer dimensions you need, how to properly insulate corrugated steel for freezing winters, and practical ways to keep local county inspectors off your back. The link is in the description below. If this video opened your eyes, hit subscribe. I cover stories like this every week, the kind that show you what ordinary Americans are actually building when the cameras are not rolling. And make sure you click the video on screen right now. The story I covered there connects directly to what you just watched. I will see you in that one.